What happened to the Platters?
The Platters were created in Los Angeles in 1952 and were initially managed by Ralph Bass, an A&R representative for Federal Records. Herb Reed, Alex Hodge, Cornell Gunter, and Joe Jefferson were the founding and naming members of the organization. Herb Reed, the group's founder, came up with the moniker while sitting around a kitchen table with other initial members, including Alex Hodge. The turntable of an ancient phonograph machine, as well as the platter that spun the vinyl records, influenced Reed. Gunter quit to join the Flares in June 1953 and lead vocalist Tony Williams took his place. The band later recorded 2 singles with Federal Records, managed by Bass, but neither was a commercial success. Bass then enlisted the help of his buddy Buck Ram, a music entrepreneur and songwriter, to teach the group in the hopes of landing a hit single. Ram made some lineup changes, most notably the inclusion of female vocalist Zola Taylor, and the replacement of Alex Hodge by Paul Roby in autumn 1954. The Platters released 8 R&B gospel songs for Federal under Ram's direction, garnering a few minor regional hits on the West Coast, and supported Williams' sister Linda Hayes. The label declared Only You and You Alone, originally written by Ram for the Ink Spots, unreleasable during their Federal term. However, copies of this early version survive. Despite their lack of chart success, the Platters were a profitable touring band, so much so that the Penguins wanted Ram to manage them as well, following the success of their number 8 single, Earth Angel. With the Penguins in control, Ram was able to negotiate a 2-for-1 agreement with Mercury Records. Mercury has to sign the Platters in order to sign the Penguins, Ram argued. For the label, the Penguins would never have another hit. Ram had the Platters re-record Only You during their first Mercury session after being convinced by Gene Bennett and Tony Williams that it had potential. It was the group's first top 10 pop success and it topped the R&B charts for 7 weeks after its release in the summer of 1955. The Platters' second single, The Great Pretender, which Buck Ram wrote in the Flamingo Hotel's Las Vegas lavatory, outperformed their debut and became their first national number 1 smash. With an 11-week stay at the top of the R&B chart, The Great Pretender was also the act's largest R&B hit. The Platters performed Only You and The Great Pretender in the first big feature picture based on rock and roll, Rock Around the Clock, in 1956. The Platters' distinct vocal style had struck a chord with the general audience. I'm Sorry, which reached number 11, and He's Mine reached number 23 in 1957. Enchanted reached number 12 in 1959, and You've Got the Magic Touch reached number 4 in 1956. Were among a streak of hit songs that included 3 more number 1 hits and other minor chart victories. The Platters quickly figured out how to update old favorites including My Prayer, Twilight Time, Harbor Lights, To Each His Own, If I Didn't Care, and Jerome Kern's Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. Kern's widow expressed anxiety that her late husband's music would be converted into a rock and roll song, which sparked a backlash. In the Platters' flair, it topped both the American and British charts. Ram had the Platters incorporated in 1956, which set them apart from most other ensembles of the time. Each member of the group earned a 20% stake in the company, as well as full royalties and Social Security benefits. As the other members of the company left one by one, Ram and his business partner Gene Bennett purchased their stock, claiming ownership of the Platters name. After the 4 male members of the Platters were arrested in Cincinnati on drug and prostitution charges in 1959, the group began to have problems with the public. Even though no one was found guilty, the group's professional reputation was severely harmed, and U.S. radio stations began to remove its records from playlists, forcing the band to rely more heavily on European bookings. Lead vocalist Williams left in 1960 to pursue a solo career, and tenor Sonny Turner took his place. Mercury refused to release any more Platters albums without Williams on lead vocals, resulting in a legal battle between the label and Ram. As a result, until the group's contract expired, the label spent 2 years releasing old Williams-era tracks. In 1961, Tony Williams signed with Reprise Records as a solo artist, recording Tony Williams Sings His Greatest Hits, which featured re-recordings of some of the Platters songs, but he returned to Philips Records the next year. In 1962, he published The Magic Touch of Tony, and the following year, he overdubbed vocals for the Platters' encore Broadway Golden Hits. By this time, however, music customers' tastes had shifted, and Williams' voice had lost some of its allure. The group's lineup fragmented even more. Taylor left in 1964 and was replaced by Beverly Hanson Harris, Barbara Randolph, and Sandra Dawn in 1965. Roby left in 1965 and was replaced by Nate Nelson, the former lead vocalist of the Flamingos. The Platters' name was contested with injunctions, non-compete clauses, and various versions of the act performing at the same time as a result of the splintering of the group's lineup. Williams, Roby, and Taylor each led their own Platters groups, and for a time, Taylor, Roby, and Lynch teamed up as the original Platters, led by Williams clone Johnny Barnes. Ram appended his name to the group's name to distinguish it from the offshoots created by previous members. With the comeback hits I Love You 1000 Times, With This Ring, and the Motown influence Washed Ashore, the Buck Ram Platters were signed to Musicor Records and enjoyed a brief chart revival in 1966 to 1967. On these three records, Sonny Turner sings lead with Reed Lynch, Nelson, and Don rounding out the band. In 1967, Nelson left the band. Regina Coco replaced Don, who left in 1969, stayed with the group until 1983. Reed, the final member of the original Platters, retired from the band in 1969. Reed performed under the moniker Herb Reed and the Platters for a time. Nelson was also a member of this group until he died of a heart attack in 1984. Ram unlawfully continued to promote his own Platters band after Reed's departure. Turner left in 1970 and was replaced by Monroe Powell, who stayed with the band from 1970 to 1995, despite several other lineup changes. Tony Williams' version of the Platters was founded in 1971 and a worldwide tour was announced. Powell and manager Gene Bennett, who had purchased Personality Productions, the Platters' booking management arm, from Ram in 1966, parted ways in 1995 due to a disagreement. The group's lineup was in flux at the time, with only one other member, Ken Johnson, remaining. Bennett hired 5 new singers to be the Buck Ram Platters, and Powell and Johnson continued to travel as the Platters. Despite Ram and Bennett's claims, the Platters name was never legitimately owned by Five Platters Inc. or Gene Bennett. In 1990, the group was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and in 1998, it was admitted into the Vocal Group Hall of Fame for the first time. The Platters had the first top 10 album in the United States during the rock and roll era. They were also the only act to have 3 songs featured on the American Graffiti soundtrack, which fueled an early to mid 1970s oldies revival. Smoke It's in Your Eyes, The Great Pretender, and Only You and You Alone were the 3 songs. Between 1975 and 1986, the group had 4 top 100 compilation albums in Australia. Bennett sued Powell for breach of contract because he was touring under the Platters name. Bennett and Powell later agreed that Powell may tour as the Platters featuring Monroe Powell, but only as the Platters. In 1994, Gene Bennett obtained a 15-year license to use the name for a show at the Sahara Casino in Las Vegas. Roby won a long legal struggle against Ram's estate and was awarded compensation as well as the right to use the Platters name shortly before his death from pancreatic cancer on February 1, 1989. In 1997, those rights were taken away from Roby's widow and Reed was given the exclusive right to travel as the Platters. Bennett was given the common law right to the name after a series of judgments in 1999, 2002, and 2004. Reed's exclusive trademark rights were legally revoked in 2002 and the trademark was returned to the Five Platters Inc. and Bennett. Bennett was offered a deal to buy the assets of the singing group The Platters by GEM Group Inc. of Las Vegas in January 2006. GEM then acquired the corporate documents and files of Personality Productions Inc., Bennett's separate management firm, and attempted to steal the company's phone numbers. Bennett and GEM had a falling out and GEM launched a lawsuit to seize some business assets, Bennett's personal property, and the Platters' assets from the 1950s. The case was dismissed due to GEM's lack of action. Sonny Turner, the main singer of the Platters from 1960 to 1970, signed a contract with GEM in June 2006. A judicial order had prevented Turner from referring to himself as the Platters since 1972. Zola Taylor died of pneumonia at the age of 69 in Riverside, California after suffering a series of strokes in 2007. Herb Reed passed away in June 2012 at the age of 83. Reed was the only original Platters member to feature on every single recording. Sonny Turner, the former lead singer of the Platters, sang as Sonny Turner, who took over for Tony Williams in late 1959. With the successes of I Love You 1000 Times, With This Ring, and Wash Ashore, Sonny took the Platters back to the top of the charts in 1966. On January 13th, 2022, he passed away. Herb Reed and his companies were awarded judgments in 2011 ruling that his rights to the name were superior to those of others, including Five Platters Inc. and Gene Bennett. Larry Marshak and his companies claim to have received rights to the name The Platters through FPI and/or Tony Williams. In March 2014, Herb Reed's companies were awarded judgment finding they had superior rights to the name The Platters over Larry Marshak and his companies. Reed's company won a court order forcing the world-famous Platters to label itself as a tribute to the Platters or a salute to the Platters in April 2014. And that's what happened to the Platters. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And here's a playlist of some of my favorite Platter songs. And the playlist should be on screen. Also on screen, there is a link to my Patreon account if you want to support this channel. Thank you again for watching. Let me know some of your favorite Platter songs, and I'll see you in the next video.